Regular viewers of this particular playlist will recall that I was not overly impressed with this, which was the Star Trek First Contact version of the NCC-1701-E Sovereign class U.S.S. Enterprise, because they clearly had to design it off the basis of some initial design sketches for the film, and it turned out that the actual Enterprise used in the film did not resemble this Enterprise in certain key respects, which for someone like me means that the toy just didn't sort of live up to what we saw in the film, and therefore was wrong diddly wrong, quite frankly. So fast forward a few years and the Next Generation crew are still larking about in their Sovereign class Enterprise E, which has now had the odd upgrade here or there, but more importantly, Playmates have had more time to do things to the design. So here we have my rather hard won, admittedly, hard to get, Star Trek Insurrection U.S.S. Enterprise 1701-E from Playmates. And I have not looked at this in detail before. I've literally only just got this out. It was very well packaged. Bought it from a chap who I've bought from before, who had an astounding collection of Star Trek stuff. And happily, sometimes when he's been moving his collection on, I have arrived at exactly the right time to pick up something that I needed. And I'm just looking at this sort of, with, as I say, with you for the first time, basically up close, having only seen it on a screen before now. And you can see it's already saying here, all new detailing authenticated by Starfleet engineers, tee-hee. And isn't that ironic, given the comments that I've just made, that the previous version was a bit off? And I can immediately see now they've got the nacelle caps in place, so they've got this structuring over the ends and the nacelles, so they're not just sort of artificial nails, kind of nacelle buzzard collectors. So that's better already. I don't think the try me will work, because I doubt he sent it to me with oh, he has. Oh, he sent it to me with batteries in. How interesting. All right, okay. Well, that's good. I mean, that saves me finding batteries. Excellent. If I know him like I think I might know him, these might be the original batteries that have always been in it. I'm not quite sure. They might be his testing batteries, the batteries that he's forgotten to take out. But anyway, so authentic lights and sounds, clearly, because it just did something from the hit motion picture. 3 button-activated starship sounds. Light up warp nacelles and impulse engines, captain's yacht shuttlecraft. And this is an interesting thing here. Now, I don't know how this is going to work. I think it actually physically attaches to the Enterprise using a sort of a, like an impulse engine kind of, wake kind of effect, which isn't a thing, but for the purposes of attaching it to a mothership is a thing. If you're unfamiliar, well, first of all, let me make an observation in that having an ancillary craft with an Enterprise from Playmates is unheard of. The nearest I can think of that they've got to with that before now is including a Captain Kirk with a Galileo shuttlecraft as a sort of an added bonus extra. I tell a lie, actually, they did do it with Deep Space Nine as well. Deep Space Nine got a very small Enterprise D that could fit onto a pylon. So actually, it's not the first time they use this approach, but it's the first time I can think of them using it with an actual Enterprise, I think. So interesting and nice that it's in there, definitely. It is actually quite unusual to see this box without that being in there, because it is encased. So somebody probably would have had to have really had a go at the box to extract that. So that's pretty cool. I like it as a box as well. Those are sort of, they look like paintings of Picard and Data there, and whatever the chap's name was, who was the unhappy bloke. I forget what his name was. But this includes a Starfleet display base, which is pretty standard for Playmates as well. So when we get it out, we can, I can pop it up for you. Let's have a look what they did with the back. So we've got Star Trek Insurrection U.S.S. Enterprise 1701-E. Now, I should say as well, I haven't seen very many of these in the UK at all. So I was seriously contemplating getting this from America, and then he suddenly put it out there. Now, I have seen this in the flesh before, and I already know that there are elements of this I'm not going to like. And I think this is getting towards the end of the Playmates' first stabs at Star Trek. And maybe it's beginning to show, I don't know. But for me, those nacelle caps are really chunky. I know that I'm not going to like those already because I think I've seen pictures of it. It kind of looks okay from a distance in that shot, but from that side, that doesn't look so great to me personally. So, Star Trek Insurrection, U.S.S. Enterprise, NCC-1701-E. Having taken an oath to obey the Prime Directive, Starfleet officers and crew have sacrificed their lives to protect it. But when the order to violate the Prime Directive comes from Starfleet itself, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Lieutenant Commander Data, and the crew of the U.S.S. Enterprise NCC-1701-E must make the most difficult decision of all, to follow orders or to mutiny in the name of upholding Starfleet's most sacred principle. And that is basically Star Trek Insurrection in a nutshell. The classic rogue admiral. The vast majority of admirals we see in Starfleet are for some reason rogue. They really need to vet better when they upgrade someone to admiral, I feel. Federation Starship profile, none of that is particularly interesting. It just says, current mission, the Enterprise E has entered a spatial anomaly called the Briar Patch in response to a reported attack on a joint Federation sonar research team. That's right, there's sonar, yeah. Boldly go where no one has gone before, except that Starfleet were already there. Okay. Also collect the Starfleet Type 2 phaser with authentic lights and sounds, which I think I've already got an example of. Press activation button to hear one of 3 authentic sounds. Engage warp speed and watch the nacelles light up and the impulse engines illuminate. Display your Enterprise E with the captain's yacht on the Starfleet base. There you go. So Paramount toys and various details there. Includes 3 replaceable triple A? Yeah, AAA batteries, little batteries, that figures. Now, I'm just wondering about timing on this one. Probably on the detailed base. So again, we've got the Bandai signature there as well on it. Probably for distribution purposes. So 1998, yeah, so we are getting right up against the end of the Playmates era here. Now, I don't know whether or not that's pre the film itself. I'm not sure when Insurrection actually came out. Let me just check. Well, my helpful digital assistant tells me that it was released on 1st of January 1999. So this toy is actually dated pre the film, but hopefully the Sovereign's design didn't shift that much between what Playmates received and what was actually used in the film. Now, the one thing I'm struggling to remember here is whether or not this was amended in before, after Nemesis, because the Nemesis Enterprise was a little bit beefier, as I recall, as compared with the Insurrection one. But if I were to think logically, the Insurrection Enterprise was also around at the time of the Dominion War. So you would think that if they were going to soup it up with more torpedoes and so on, then they would have done it by Insurrection. So not quite sure on that one. But in any event, it's been iterated on already, so this should be a closer model to the actual one that we saw in the films. So let me unbox it. I know it's been unboxed before, because the gentleman did sort of had taken it out of the box to put it on his eBay ad. Interestingly, I'm not sure what option he took in terms of where we were removing the sellotape, so presumably he put sellotape on top of sellotape or something, which is kind of curious, but let's have a look. I'm probably not going to get the yacht out itself because I'd like to leave that put. In case you're wondering, the captain's yacht shuttlecraft, generally speaking, tends to live just in the undersection of the primary saucer section hull. So Voyager, for example, had a shuttle there, which was supposed to be the captain's yacht, and although it was part of the overall designs, we never actually saw it being used in anger in the series, I believe. So it exists as a model, but it never actually saw the light of day, which is kind of curious because it was Voyager was a heavily CGI-driven show, so it's kind of odd that they didn't actually choose to use that at some point. But I suppose they'd already done the Delta Flyer, so perhaps they just felt they didn't need another ship, if you see what I mean, as the sort of an auxiliary shuttlecraft. Okay, oh, that's interesting. So she's free and clear up to a point at least. So he hasn't applied decals to it at any point then. So we've still got the decals there. A bit more light on the scene now that we've cleared the box. So you can see there. So that's interesting because it'll be interesting to see that because the registry is there. So I'm wondering if it's actually completely plain then, with any of the stickers applied. I don't think I've ever actually had to apply stickers to a Playmate ship that I've got before. So we can see the nacelles are here. Excuse me. And I can see how they sort of slot on. So I guess I'm going to have to sort of build her up a little bit here. In order to show you the full whack, but that's useful to have them separated though, because this is what I was sort of having the issue with. That just looks far too bulky for me, for my taste. I don't think they were anywhere near that sort of heavily shielded. So part of me is starting to wonder whether or not this is actually another example of where Playmates were given an early design where the Sovereign was going to be sort of done differently again, but then in fact wasn't done in the way that they got the sketches for it. So I do just wonder whether or not they got shortchanged again on the design front. So here's a thing. I wonder how he took it out before, because he definitely had it out. Let's go with that. It's quite odd seeing it without nacelles. That's just kind of weird for me anyway. But I think what I will do is I think I'm going to unbag it in a respectful fashion and set up the stand, and then I will come back to you with it. Now I've gone for a slightly halfway house approach here. I haven't actually taken everything out of the box for this because I was looking at it as I was getting it out and I just thought, do you know what? I'm not convinced I'm going to keep this. I'm not convinced I'm going to keep it. So with that in mind, I'm somewhat selfishly going to leave more stuff in the box. What is interesting about the box is that it looks to me as if there is a spare, what might be a spare battery compartment cover in there, which is interesting because I don't think that the previous Playmates one that I had that as a concept. Now, by which I mean my previous Sovereign. Now, I didn't have a fully boxed Sovereign. It had a box, but it wasn't probably fully boxed. So maybe that's standard. It's possible. But as I was getting the main chip out, I just thought, you know what? I don't think I care enough about this to want to actually keep it. I mean, it's an improvement over the prior version of it, yes. I might have to have a bit of a think anyway, but for the time being, I haven't completely unboxed it. Interestingly, the stand that it's on is the stand for my other Sovereign from First Contact. because I looked at the interconnection and I thought, hang on a minute, that looks decidedly similar to the previous one, so can I just swap them out? And apparently I can. And that's actually gone into the insert in the inside of the hole. So I'm now wondering just how much of a difference they did make to the mold, because I thought, why does that work? Why should that work? That seems really odd to me. But anyway, so all the lights and sounds and so on work. So I will do what I normally do and just kill off my auxiliary lighting and just let you listen to that. It's quite loud, so so the nacelles and so on are lighting up. I don't know how much of that you will have caught. What I might do is do this. So just keep your volume down for a moment and you'll see better from this angle. So both the impulse engines are lighting up, which is good. Torpedoes. Not quite sure what that sound effect was supposed to be. Something. Let's have a look at the box. The box says the it's got a battle module apparently. Display some it doesn't actually say, interestingly. Often with these, the box indicates what the sound effects are. And again, there is a manual in with the stickers. But for obvious reasons, I haven't got that out either. So that might have told me what the different sounds were, but it's not immediately apparent to me what that last one was supposed to be. So, in terms of the prior version of the Enterprise E, then, when you compare these two, you can do a lot of difference spotting. And I haven't done this exercise before, so I'm just looking across, and that's interesting. This section here, the overall bridge layout is different. So the Insurrection version is definitely different, and yeah, I mean they've coloured certain areas darker, and they've now got that daft single impulse engine split correctly, across the hull. So that's definitely better. So you can see why it looks so starkly different when you compare it like that. The nacelles are narrower on the Insurrection version, and they don't obviously have the great big false fingernail attachments as standard, which is good. The sort of electronics part of it looks virtually identical. In fact, what they've done is, interestingly, these pieces are exactly the same. So one used to be red see-through plastic, the other is now solid plastic, but the actual mold is identical. So they haven't changed the lower body of it that much, really. It's more a case of bolting things on and swapping things out. It's not radically different. And I thought for some reason there was going to be more armour added for the Insurrection version. But I can see that the escape pods and so on are all in exactly the same sort of configuration. I think even down to the windows. So I do not think that this is a radically different mould at all. Now, in fairness, I don't know that it needs to be. I don't know my Enterprise E well enough to confidently stand here and tell you that actually, they really sort of missed something as such. But I do think those nacelles are still wrong on the Insurrection version. There's just something about them that doesn't quite sit right with me. I think you just can't see enough of the buzzard collectors, and in the film the buzzard collectors were a sort of a key plot point. So I don't think they were that tiny in the film, personally. I don't even think they look that tiny on the box illustration of the Enterprise either. So they still look wrong to me. And I mean, of all the Playmate ships I've looked at, I've always had some hesitation around some of the details, yes. but for some reason they just have not been able to quite land the Sovereign. And I don't know why. It seems quite odd to me, because they would have had up-to-date CGI to go by in creating the Sovereign, and yet they still seem to somehow sort of struggle with it, which is just odd. It's just odd from Playmates. I mean, yeah, it's primarily a toy first, and I would just say as well, the nacelles seem to be really easy to knock off. Perhaps that's intentional, don't know, but I would have hoped for a little bit more of a positive click when they go in, and it's quite soft, which is a bit of a shame. So yeah, I find it difficult to enthuse about this one, which is unfortunate. I just find it difficult to enthuse. I probably should have checked the underside, but I suspect that we wouldn't see too many differences with the underside sections either. I'm trying to think where the major changes were between them besides the... I know that there were more torpedo launchers added at some point, but I don't think the Playmates version is really picking up on that, if it's relevant to this particular version. So I would be really interested to hear your comments on this one, because again, it's sort of standard 3-button effects. That's all you get. You can't cycle through more by pressing the buttons again. It's just, it is what it is. Well, I'm saying that. Let me just double check that. Hang on. Yeah, so it's still just cycling through the same ones each time you press the button. You won't find any new ones there by continuously pressing. So, yeah, just can't quite get excited about it. I can see that someone would want it for, well, standing here saying someone would want it for completion's sake. But yes, obviously I'm doing it to sort of complete my run through. But is this would I view this as an essential addition to my collection? Well, no, not from a solid model of the actual ship point of view. You see what I mean? As a toy, yeah, fine, it's a toy. I get that. But I guess for me personally, when it comes to Star Trek, I like to have the confidence that what I'm looking at is sort of as it should be. That's just me. I'll just show you the little sort of captain's yacht a little bit closer up, because obviously it's still all in its packaging there. I haven't taken it out, but that's what, if you ever see that loose, that's what you're looking at. It's quite unusual in the sense that it's got slightly swept up nacelles, which you don't often see on a shuttlecraft. I seem to remember they actually sort of the picture, and again this might be an indication that there was a shift, because on the front of the box, I didn't call this out at the time, but I noticed it. On the front of the box there, the captain's yacht, as illustrated, has downward pointing nacelles as compared to the cockpit windows, when the actual model has upward pointing nacelles. So that's kind of weird. But again, I think if I were being generous, I think they were variable geometry ones, because it unfurled a little bit when it came out of the saucer section, I think. Yeah. I wasn't convinced I was going to particularly love it, I have to say, but I wanted to get it to sort of complete the Sovereign run, So maybe you'll see this on eBay before long, I don't know. But I'll have to have a think. I'll have to have a think about what I want to do. But I do find it interesting that it's got the same display stand as the original. As soon as I realised that, I was immediately thinking they haven't gone to that much effort here, really. Now that may be unfair of me, I don't know, but that's the vibe I'm getting from it. Because there's too much that's still the same as the previous version for my taste. And obviously the nacelles are a plug-in piece anyway, so they could easily just retool those, and that seems to be what they've done. So flame away, comment away in the section, please do. Always interested to hear the feedback and the greater knowledge that many of us do have on this than my good self. But I just think they slightly missed it again. But tell me what you think. Next time, I think the Borg might be coming back to pay us a visit. It's always an issue, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Cheers for now.